Alright guys, I hate to make a video about something that's stupid that I could have prevented, but I just didn't know. And I think that's most of how I learn everything that I know about Mercedes, is because I make mistakes and I learn from them. So if anyone is familiar with the W220 or the W215, you might know what this is. You might even recognize this location. This is the passenger side footwell of a 2003 CL55. This is my personal wide body. So why do I have this disassembled? Why did I pull back this carpet? Why did I pull back that metal plate, that styrofoam covering? And why did I take this cover off of this junction box right here? These are some hidden fuses that are like pre-fuses to the modules. You have typical or regular fuse boxes located right here on this side of the dash, the passenger side. And this is the US spec W215. You also have an engine compartment on the passenger side in the hood. You also have one on the driver's side. And you also have one back here in the back seat, up under this, well, behind this, the foot, well, you know what I'm talking about. The back seat, right about where the heels of your feet would be on the passenger side. You also have another fuse box location right there. But this happened because I've lately been having a starting issue. Sometimes I put the key in ignition and I turn it and everything powers up, but it doesn't start. And I'm like, worst case scenario, I'm like, dang, the EIS needs to be replaced. That's the electronic ignition system. And I'm like, I don't want that to happen. I don't want to have to go in there and spend, because there's no like workaround. You have to spend good money for the EIS, and it has to be programmed. There's no way around it, and it's expensive. When I say expensive, a few $1,000s is what I assume. Maybe $1,500 to $2,000, $2,500. I don't know. Prices might have gone up. At one point, it was like $1,500. I'm sure it's more now. So I guessed, and I'm like, well, maybe it's the starter relay. Because if the starter relay is getting funky, then it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes it will start right up, and sometimes it won't. And it happened very few times. And then it began to happen more frequently. I'll put the key in the ignition and nothing would happen. I would turn it, of course, all the lights and everything would come on. You'll hear all kind of clicking up in the engine compartment and it wouldn't start. And one day, the other day, I took my wife to the gym. We drove this just to get it back on the road because I haven't driven in a while. It was a phenomenal drive, by the way. But when we came back from the gym and I tried to start it, it didn't start. And so my wife started laughing. You know, she's cool though. But she was like, imagine if this was our first date. And I had this Mercedes and I think I'm so live and cool. And I think I'm cold, you know? Like, I think I'm really doing something with this wide body Benz, you know? And then I get melted, you know? I think I'm melting and I get melted. That's an expression that we commonly use out this way, meaning that you kind of played yourself. You thought you was live, but then you got dissed. Thought you was melt and you got melted. So that's what happened. I said, I gotta fix this, man. I know it doesn't need a starter. I mean, I don't think it does. It cranks up. When it cranks up, when it catches a signal, it starts perfectly. But at times you just click it, click it, click it. I mean, again, everything comes on inside, but there's no signal to start the car. Meaning the starter is not actuated or activated, shall I say. It doesn't receive that signal to start. And if it does, that means that the starter is going out. But typically, if a starter goes out, it gradually goes out. It becomes harder to crank. And then eventually, it'll just stop working. But that's not the case here. It doesn't do anything until it does something. And it's happening more often. I thought it might have been like the, what they call it, the brake switch or something like that. I thought the car might not have been all the way apart. I threw it in neutral. I kept playing around. I kept doing different things. And really nothing makes it work all the time. All right. So what did I decide to do? Why am I talking about all that? Because I decided to try the starter relay. Now, let's get to that. The starter relay is this green relay. It's a 5-pin relay. Let me show you where it's at. Passenger side, this one right here. This fuse box right there. That green is the starter relay. So I pulled the original one out, and I didn't have, well, I did have another green one. I don't know why I have it. I have it because I have a lot of car parts. And I used this relay tester. Okay, you hook these ends to a battery, which I have here. And you put it on 5-pin, which is what it is. It is a 5-pin. And, well, okay, just like these yellow ones right here. You plug this in there, boom, 5-pin connection. I'll show you real quick. Instead of talking about it, let me just be about it. Hold on, one hand, hold on. Oh. All right, okay, all right. Negative, let's do the positive first, boom. Negative right here, okay, boom, all right. You see how this lights up. When it's red, that means it's no good. You put a 5-pin in this case, insert it, boom, test it. See, it's green. It's clicking, it's testing each circuit, it's making it open and close or function as it would in your vehicle. And if it's good, it shows green. If it's bad, it shows red. Look at that, it's green, so it's good. Now, what I did was put the relay from the Mercedes in there, which was green. It's a green relay. I put it in there, hit the test button, and it wouldn't work. But if I put it on 4-pin, it works. Now, somebody explain that to me. So I figured it was bad because if these work on, 5-pin, this is not, there's nothing wrong with the tool itself. The tester itself is in good working condition. It works with these. I put the green one in there and it remains red. It just clicks once and it stays red. Doesn't even make a sound. It just blinks and stays red. Now, unless I'm misreading this, I'll put it on 4 and then it cycles. It's throwing me off. So I figured, okay, maybe the original starter one is bad. So what did I do? I said, well, these are 5-pin, just like the green one. And let me show you. All right, so I had to go grab this one. So here goes the original one that was in the car. You see the resemblance? Yes, they are both 5-pin. All right. When I put this one in, you saw what it did. Well, when I put this green one in, watch what it does. That's it. One blink and it stays red. But if I put on 4-pin, watch this. Somebody please explain that to me. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. So it works when you put it on 4-pin, but it doesn't work on 5-pin. So that confused me. I just assumed that this was bad. It won't read in the 5-pin. All right. But this 5-pin does read in the 5-pin. I don't get it. All right. I assume that this is good and this is bad. So what do? Oh, genius BG, Brandon Green, owner of Goldelementautoworks. What do? I take this and I put it in place of the green starter relay. Now that green one right there, that was one that I had just tucked away somewhere. And I decided to put this in place, this one. So what happens? Now, before I did this, I had the green one, the original one, in place. Try to start the car and, nothing. All the lights would come on, but it wouldn't start. So I replaced that, put this one in there, and immediately the car started. Vroom, vroom. Started and died immediately. Immediately it started, immediately it died. So I said, well, dang, what did I just do? Turn the key? Nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. I don't get power to anything when I put that key in the ignition. It doesn't do anything. I said, golly, did I just burn something? Now I'm looking back and I'm thinking, okay, these right here are not the same, obviously, as the green ones. they don't function the same as the green ones. And maybe all 5 pins don't function the same way this one doesn't function the same way that this one does regarding sending the positive and the negative or whatever to whatever circuits on here. I just assumed all 5 pin relays are the same, but they're not, okay? I don't know why, but they're not. Something went wrong. And so, me not having any power, of course, I Google everything, and I Googled it, and somebody who didn't do that, but they did jump the starter relay. They tried to jump it, pin 87 and pin something, I don't know. They tried to jump it, and all of a sudden, they put the key in the ignition, they got absolutely nothing. I think they even said it started and died immediately, just like mine, same symptoms. And so, they blew something. They blew a fuse. I checked all the fuses up here, and of course, none of those were blown. And so, coming across that information told me that, hey, it might be what's up under the passenger side footwell. And I know that there's a junction box, and I knew that there were fuses in there, but you have to do some major damage to blow one of those fuses. Well, I guess I did some major damage. And so I gained access to them. I unplugged the battery in the trunk. I took the negative off the battery in the trunk because you're dealing with high voltage right here. That cable right there is fully charged when you have the battery in the trunk plugged up. And so what did I do? I unplugged the battery in the trunk. I removed the big old bolt or nut that keeps that. There we go. I removed this rusty big old nut that secures the large cable, and the smaller nut that secures these 3 cables right there. And I pried the box off, which is this. You have to pry it off, the little clips on the sides. All right, I think this one actually broke because I couldn't access it. It doesn't matter. It's 3 of those now securing it. And when you, let me turn this off. And when you put those nuts back on there, the large cable and those cables, it all clicks on there and it secures it. The whole point of that is to cover that up, of course, and to protect it from water or anything. Gosh, and you don't want to ground that accidentally. That right there is a very important box. Those fuses right there, again, protect the larger circuits that feed the modules, the fuse boxes, things of that nature. So you don't want to mess that up. So I use my voltmeter. I put it on ohms or resistance, and I measured across the fuses. That fuse is good. That fuse is good. This fuse is not. And that is a 60 amp fuse. You can't really see it, but it is burnt. All right, you can see the little black speck right there. It did do what it's supposed to do, and it protected that circuit. I'm assuming, let me see, that one feeds this one right here. Oh, my bad. That fuse that blew feeds this one right here. I could have just lifted this, pulled it out, and tested it from the outside, but it doesn't matter. I would have found out that fuse is blown, and I need to replace it. So now I got to replace that fuse, and I'll make sure I'll never do that again. And I still have to figure out why sometimes my car starts, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe that relay was going bad, but I replaced it with the wrong one. So fortunately, I do have more of those fuses because that actual fuse box and module and all that crap, I actually have another one. I have it from a 2002 CL500 that I had taken apart. And I believe that junction box is the same. All you have to do is make sure that the fuses and everything match up, that you have fuses in their designated little area or spot or connection. Make sure that circuit is protected by a fuse. Make sure the fuses are the same number. You don't want to over or under fuse the circuit amperage wise. So I'll replace that. I'll pull that out. I won't put another relay in there that's not supposed to be in there. And I'll see if I replace it with the same relay, if it resolves the issue. All right. I will leave this. Let me see. Nah, I'm not going to leave it uncovered when I test it. I'm going to just do it the right way and put everything back together so nothing is exposed and has the potential to short out. And let's see if everything works. All right, so I finally got the fuse removed. Now, this is what that fuse looks like. It's a 60 amp fuse. And, they don't really make a lot of these in the common automotive world. So I'm going to go to AutoZone. I'm going to even go to O'Reilly's. I'm going to see what they have. Now, this right here is similar. It's about the same size. It'll work in replacement, but it's 100 amps. Now, this came out of a amplifier kit. One of the fuse boxes for that, like for the high power cable. You know how you have different size fuses and designs. Here we go. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here go my fuses that I have on hand. So oftentimes with aftermarket amplifier systems, you get a wire kit. It comes with things like this, which is the big one. Comes with sometimes these. Those are usually high powered, anywhere between usually 90 to 200, sometimes 300. In this case, I had a fuse holder that has 2 of these in there, but these are 100. So that kind of gives me hope. If this aftermarket amplifier wire kit came with this design and it's comparable to this one in overall length of connection, it's just the wrong amperage. So that gives me some hope. Maybe AutoZone or O'Reilly's will have a fuse of this shape. I'll take both of these with me. Again, I need a 60. So let me go to O'Reilly's and AutoZone and see what I can find. All right, so I decided to do something a little different. Now, I could have returned it back to factory spec and the OEM design regarding this fuse and access to this panel. But the frustrating part that got me is the fact that I had to do so much disassembly in order to access that fuse. If that fuse were to blow again, I had to take apart, disconnect the battery cable, remove this cable from this unit right here, and some other connections. These connections right here. There's a lot of disassembly. It's hard to detach this box, this plastic cover of the box or whatever. It's hard to detach that without breaking the tabs. I already broke one in the process. And there's a few more on here that are still intact. But it's frustrating and awkward. So what I've decided to do, instead of just simply replacing this blown fuse right here and inserting it, because it was up under this design, it was the 2 metal, I guess, I don't know what you would call this thing, but the design of this is that the fuse actually went up under this metal panel and it went up under here, the contact here. So I had to lift this. I actually had to bend this in order to get that fuse out of there because it's up under there. And instead, I can attach it on top so that it's easier to replace. Let me just zoom in and show you what I'm talking about. So you see this one right here. This fuse is up under this panel and it's up under this one. So you have to remove this altogether or lift it up enough and undo anything that's holding it down in order to lift it up enough to get this, to remove it. Same thing with this one. I wasn't able to lift this whole piece up right here in order to get that one out, this one right here. So I had to wind up bending this right here in order to pry it out. And yeah, it bends back, but you don't want to have to do all that. That makes it very difficult for me to replace it if it ever were to blow again. You see, that's why it's distorted. That's why it's shaped out crazy like that. Because I had to like really manipulate and bend that thing up out of there. Now, I could reattach it and just put it simply on top of the panel, on top of the screws, and then secure it with nuts. That's easy. But again, my issue is not just that, but it's getting access to it. It's pretty intense to get in there. And if you're ever on the side of the road or something, and if you don't have the tools that you need, you're really in trouble. So to avoid that, I decided to modify that line. Now, that's the line that after reading a lot of forums and discussions that a lot of people have had issues with when tampering with the starter. If that were to ever happen again, I don't want to go through all that. So what did I do? I put an inline fuse. Now, this is for a car amplifier system. Make sure, okay, so the one that I removed was a 60 amp, right? So I replaced it with a 60 amp fuse, but I use this type, the inline type. So this line now is protected. So I can do a hard connection if I wanted to between those 2 points. Between these 2 points, I can do a hard connection. Or I can put another fuse, another 60 amp fuse. And why would I do that? Why would I put another 60 amp fuse? Well, I guess if for some reason, if this one failed to blow, you know that this one is, you have another fuse right there. But you don't really have to do that. I can put a 100 amp fuse if I wanted to, because the flow of the direction, I guess the direction of the current, if it were to short out at the fuse box or anywhere in between this point and the fuse, is going to blow. This line obviously can't handle high amperage, right? It'll start to burn and catch fire. So you want to make sure that the amperage of the fuse is less than this rather than greater than this line, right? So 60 amps is what Mercedes said. It's what they recommended. It's what they had installed, OEM. And so never go less or more than that for this line. So I, in a sense, no longer need a fuse right there, because this right here feeds the module, the fuse box, all of that. And so now this line is protected. So the point of the design has not been altered. Yeah, the design itself has, but the objective has not changed. That line is still protecting now the fuse box in the engine compartment on the passenger side. So it doesn't matter what size I put there, as long as it's not less than 60. It could be a hard connection. At my disposal, let me see, I do have, did I bring it over here? There it goes. I do have a 100. Now I cannot simply put this in place of that and not put an inline fuse that protects it with a 60 amp fuse. You do not install a higher fuse than what was initially or originally installed. You are no longer protecting that line. Do you understand what I'm saying? But because I still have a 60 amp one in place, it's protecting it. It's just between these two contact points, and it's just an extension of it, so it doesn't matter. It's still protecting it. This right here, so this battery right here that is connected to it, that feeds this whole, what would you call this box? This junction box, I guess. This cable right here goes directly to the battery. I know that for sure because when I disassembled the CL500 before, I took that cable. I actually have an extra one of these cables. So that runs directly to that battery back there. All right. So it is protected. I am okay to put this 100 amp fuse onto the junction box because past that point, I have a 60 amp inline fuse. So, okay, all right, that's explained well enough. So now with this connected, I put everything back together. I put this larger amperage fuse in place of there just to create a connection there, a hard connection there, and it's still protected, as I said. I can now have access to this fuse if something were to ever go or blow, right? If that fuse were to blow again, I do not have to disassemble this whole mechanism here. I only have to access this right here. It's isolated. I don't have to interrupt. It's isolated. I don't have to interrupt anything else. I simply have access to this just like you would in a vehicle with an amplified sound system. All you have to do is twist this loose, and then you have access to that fuse. You can easily swap it out. No longer do I have to disassemble this whole box to swap out a blown fuse. And hopefully I don't have another blown fuse because I know why I did it. I put a bad relay in place, and it wasn't the design of the starter relay, which I think has a diode in place. Without that diode there, that one direction current flow limiter, well, there you go. I blew this fuse. So just as a warning, only install in your starter relay another starter relay. That's a green relay that Mercedes makes specifically for the starter. Do not install another 5-pin relay thinking that it will work. Make sure it is the green OEM design relay, particularly from Mercedes. All right, I know they do make aftermarket ones, but make sure that it is up to spec, up to OEM spec. All right, so let me go ahead and put this back together, and that's the solution to my issue. Yes, I can. Like I said, I can buy some more 60 amp ones and just keep swapping them out whenever it blows. I hope to not ever have to swap this out again. But my problem is the disassembly that's involved in order to get access to that fuse. I'm not happy with that. I'm not cool with that. I'm not going to do that. So you be careful. If you decide to tamper with this and change anything, make sure that you disconnect that battery before you do it. Are you looking to see what I'm looking at right here? This is my other phone. I was on TikTok Live, I think. All right. So if you want to see my TikTok, you can go to, why I changed my name? It used to be Goldelementautoworks. They changed it to Brandon P. Green. Oh, am I logged in under? No? I don't know why, but anyways, this is my TikTok. You've seen some of these videos before? Ah, that's a good one. Yeah, let's look at that one. Oh my gosh. Man, this signal is horrible, man. Anyways, so yeah, go to my TikTok. I thought you should type in Goldelementautoworks. I don't know why it says Brandon Green at the top now. TikTok is a little iffy. I gotta be careful with them. All right, anyways, let me get back to this work. All right, guys, lesson learned. So if you're replacing the starter relay, make sure you put the right one in. Mercedes has a specific design relay for the starter. It has the diode incorporated into the design. And if you don't know what a diode is, it allows current to flow in one direction. Think of a light emitting diode, a LED. You cannot plug an LED in backwards. It won't work. You plug it in one directional. That's the only way that it works. And so when you put a relay in that might be a 5-pin, but it's not designed for the starter, it doesn't have that diode incorporated into it. It allows the current to flow the wrong way, and it will trip a fuse. You can also do damage to the module if you don't, if that fuse doesn't catch it. But the fuse is there for a reason, to protect that circuit. And so thankfully it did blow, and I replaced it with one of the extra relay fuses, the relays that I have, the starter relays right here. I have two. I have one original one. That's this one. This is the one that might be faulty. This one I pulled out of another module fuse box thing that I had. This one right here. From a 2002 CL500 that I had. But it obviously was wet. There's corrosion on there. And so even with the relay tester, it doesn't really work properly. So it's faulty, so I'm not going to obviously use that. But I had a third one that I used that I just had laying around. I think I took it out of a W220, like an S-Class from the junkyard or something like that. And so I used that one, and the car started right up. So that's good. I'm happy. I'm glad I didn't do any permanent damage. And again, I did an inline fuse. That gives me that protection that I can easily access if I ever need to swap out that fuse. Also, a more easily accessible fuse replacement also, because that type of fuse is you can buy that fuse anywhere. But those little mini, what do they call them, A&Ls, something, I don't know. They're a little small fuse though. I ordered some through Amazon, waiting for them to come. I grew impatient and decided to go ahead and just change the design. But yeah, I have some of those though in place, and I did put the 100 one in its original place so that if it bypasses the 60 for whatever reason, the 100 will protect the battery in the rear. So there we go. So lesson learned, make sure you install the proper relay when you replace them. Do not put the yellow joint in there. Do not put this in there. All right, that was the start of all my problems. When I did that, that's what blew the fuse. Okay, guys, so lesson learned. Learn from me. Don't make the same mistakes. And let's continue to teach each other and learn from each other's mistakes so that we all can continue to maintain and support, maintain the Mercedes-Benz effectively and support one another proficiently. All right, guys, go to Autoworks. Take care. Look forward to the next video. All right. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. I always have more content coming because I do auto work myself. And a lot of times, just like this, I learn the hard way. So the more I learn, the more you know. All right, guys. Take care.